Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Now I like to bring instruments in for you to see almost every time I come in, because a lot of instruments like these you've never seen before, and because it's kind of fun and some of them are quite playable. And I know some of these instruments can't play very well because they're more or less just toys, which really irritates me because I think if a company is going to make a toy, they need to make one that actually works. But some of them work fairly well. They're not up to the level of like a Casio or a Roland or a Yamaha, three of my favorite brand names for instruments. However, they sometimes play well enough that you could actually teach quite a bit on them. So I'm going to bring in some other instruments that's not the sasutos and it's not the penny whistles, although I do have, just to refresh your memory, this is a penny whistle, and it's a brass color with a green plastic top, has a 2-octave range, plays very well, and you notice that it's cylindrical, it does not come to a point, it just goes straight up and down. And the other one I brought in, just to refresh your memory, is this Clark's. This Clark is in the key of D, and it's put out by Clark's in England. It has a wooden plugged Fipple mouthpiece, and you can see that it comes to a point. And those are the conical ones that comes to a point. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference in terms of how they play. It's, I think, maybe a styling thing, and maybe the ones that are conical and don't, and they do come to a point, maybe they have a little softer tone. I know that the wooden plugged Fipple mouthpieces, they all have a softer tone. So I brought in quite a few of these. Well, so what I want to do is to bring in some more. And what I'm going to start off is with these melody flutes. They come in a variety of colors, very bright colors, and you know they play pretty well. They're not very expensive. I got a bunch of them when I had a chance to buy them because I liked the colors and I thought someday I may actually use them. And it turns out they do make a nice little teaching instrument. So here's the green one. I want to show you in the back. You do not have any tone holes in the back of this melody flute. That's the brand name, by the way, Melody. I don't know if anyone can, if you can pick up the name because it's just, you know, kind of an imprint on the instrument, but at any rate, it's Melody, and the letters are fairly large in the front. I have a number of them. In the back, they have 2 places where you put your thumb. There's no tone hole in the back, so they're not going to pitch like an instrument with a tone hole, but there's a place for your left thumb and for your right thumb. And you notice also that the tone holes are actually elevated. I have a number of instruments that are elevated like this, and I think it's supposedly easier for students to learn where to put their fingers if they can feel, you know, if it's a little hole right in an instrument like the recorders and the penny whistles, it may be harder to feel what you're doing. You know, it's a rule of thumb. Never watch yourself play in a mirror. Some people do that. They figure if they can look at themselves, they can figure out where the holes are or where the keys are if they're playing like a piano, accordion or some kind of a digital keyboard instrument. But it throws you all off because the mirror reflection is just the opposite. So left appears right and right appears left in the mirror. You can't depend upon it at all. So this is my right hand, but it's going to look on the monitor like it's on my left. So never look at a mirror. You always need to be able to pick up an instrument, put your fingers on it, and feel where the tone holes are. And this is what I'm doing right here. And because the tone holes are elevated, it's easier for a beginning student to find that. On a regular instrument where they're not elevated, you might have to fiddle around a bit to make sure that you have your hands right. But let me play this. This is a beautiful green color. See, that's not too great. It does play some. Even in an instrument that really doesn't do all that well, there are things that you can teach from it. How to hold it, how to blow into it, where your teeth go, where your tongue goes, you know, how far do you put the mouthpiece in your mouth, and you can explain some of the workings of the instrument. This is a bright green one, and remember, it's the melody. I'm going to put this over here and show you some other melodies. Here's kind of a pinkish one. And here again, kids are attracted to the color, so are adults. And in the back, you have those same places where you put your thumb. Now, I don't understand this, but in each of them, there's a little notch. It looks like there was supposed to be a hole there, but it never got done. Just a little tiny notch, like somebody took and scraped it a little. And I found that is true with the other ones as well. So let me try this one. By the way, these are made in China. I just saw that. You see how it skips? As soon as you go from that, you're now through the lower register, you're going into the higher register, and it's out of pitch. If I use the regular flute, the regular recorder fingering, it actually flattens, and it shouldn't do that. And the lower note, of course, is sharp. Now, these aren't going to be in any specific key. They should be in the key of C by the size of them, but that's not going to happen. You know, it's just not going to be that way. And here it is, melody, written in big, bold letters, but it's the same color as the instrument on the front. I don't know if this can be picked up or not. They can't be picked up. I didn't think so. Okay, now here is kind of an orange one. And it's the same thing. It's got that same little notch in the back, like somebody tried to dig a hole in it and forgot to finish it. And it's the same as the others, and probably will play the same as the others. Does exactly the same thing. If you get to what should be a D, it actually flattens it. But what can I teach? Now, that's a song I wrote this morning, and I wrote it for the class, but even something like this can play it. It's amazing. So it's not, you know, it's not a bad thing to have an instrument like that. This is a Dixie. It's not a melody. It looks just like them. I'm not sure that they haven't been made by the same company. It doesn't have the notch in the back, but it has the same two places where you put your thumbs. And I don't know how this plays, but this is considered to be a Dixie. Probably the same caliber. This is actually better. A little brasher, but it's in pitch, and the notes are in pitch, both higher and lower registers. It squeals a little, but they're all about the same. Now, this here, I don't know what it is. It's not marked at all, but it's the same kind of thing. I noticed there's a little looseness. The mouthpiece doesn't fit quite right, and I don't dare to move it, because if I do, I'm afraid I'm going to break it. There's a little opening. You're not going to be able to see it, but there's a little opening just as that mouthpiece hits the main body of the instrument. But in other ways, it looks just like the ones, except for the color, it looks just like the ones that I've played before. It'll go about 3 or 4 notes into the upper octaves. kind of weak toned, but there's no brand name on it. I don't know what it is, but it's the same caliber as the others. And then I have the Pearl Piper. Now, the Pearl Piper is its own brand, and it plays really well for a very inexpensive instrument. It's really more or less a toy. It plays in the key of E flat, and it does so really quite accurately. I was amazed. I've done solos on this. A little squealy, but actually in pitch, in E flat, and I have been able to use it. Sometimes I'll pull it out when I'm doing something in an orchestra in the key of E flat, and people are amazed that it plays so well. And somebody said to me once, this is years ago, because I've had this instrument for a long time, "Why do you bother with this cheap stuff?" He says, "Oh, by the way, I did like that solo you did in that orange thing you got. So actually, you can do some playing on it." But the second register is going to be out of pitch. Now you're losing it. It should be a few, maybe a half a step higher. Well, if a kid has it, as long as it plays, they think it's pretty good. So here we have the Pearl Piper, and I brought this little guy in before. Who knows what it is? It's probably the least expensive instrument that I've ever gotten. It actually bends. I'm not going to do much bending of it, but it does bend. You can see. And it doesn't have, I mean, it's got the labium. I don't see anything in here that would make it play. And it's really, really cheap. It does have tone holes, nothing in the back. There are a few little notches, and it says, I don't know what it says, China. It says China. Everything comes from China, right? So it does play some. Doesn't play well. I think an amateur couldn't get anything out of it. But it was kind of a novelty item, and I decided, well, why not? And I picked it up. Now, I've got 3 more here that I really want to show you, and these are called magic flutes. And they're made by First Note. Now, I had a couple of First Note instruments within the last couple of segments. They are beyond a toy into a regular instrument status. And they do, at least some of them, I don't know about all of these, play pretty well. Some of them actually you could actually use for solo work. They're made in the United States. They're called magic flutes. They're put out by First Note. This one isn't the greatest. So you wouldn't want to do much with that, but I have a couple that do fairly well. Let's take this one, the yellow one. Now, that's not bad for a real cheap instrument, and it is better than a regular toy. It does have a difference in the size of the tone holes, and that's to accommodate the size of your fingers. You don't find that in a toy. So it's not a bad little instrument, not really bad at all. The other one I have that's put out by First Note is this one right here. Kind of a lavender plum color. It's probably the best one of the group that I have. So you can learn how to play on something like this if it's good enough, and this is good enough. So these are the ones that I want to show you. There are groups of instruments that I have not brought in. I haven't brought, well, I have at some point, but long ago, the ocarinas, the melodicas, but I just want to give you the recorder-like instruments, and I've been doing that during the last 2 or 3 segments, so you can see the great variety that exists. And remember that if you learn an instrument, if it's a woodwind and it has its tone holes running up and down like they all do, and maybe a thumb hole in the back, you can transfer a lot of what you've learned onto these instruments. I've never taken lessons on any of these instruments, but I play woodwind, so I kind of pick it up and it plays, and it's good. Now, I need to watch my time, but I want to go over a little bit about time with you, so I'm going to switch to these charts just to show you a little bit about timing and what it's like, because I've been playing, as I've been working with these instruments this morning, I've been playing this song that I wrote. I just wrote it up this morning. I got up and there it was in my mind, and I said, well, okay, I'll write it down. But you have to know how to do timing. And so what I'm going to do is just do a quick review, and we're going to get to the song either this segment or next. Here's a whole note. A whole note is either going to be probably 4 beats or 3 beats. It's going because it's a whole note, the amount of time that you hold it is the time that the measure is. I mean, if you have music that's based on 4/4 time, that means that it's 4 beats to a measure. And if you're playing a whole note, it's going to have that 4 beats because it's going to be the only note in that measure. If you're playing and it happens to be 3/4 time, then that whole note is going to have 3 beats. It will have whatever the time signature says is the timing of that beat, of that piece of music. So this is going to be a whole note, 4 beats, let's say, because we'll deal with 4/4 time first. The half notes are 2 beats each, and totally combined, they're going to equal the whole note. And quarter notes have 1 stem on them, and they will have 1 beat each, and it's going to take 2 of them to make a half note and 4 of them to make the whole note. So you subdivide. There's a lot of fractions in music. Then you have the 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Those are 8th notes. And they're like half of a quarter. So there would be 8. If you split these quarter notes in half, there would be 8 notes. Now, in 4/4 time, you would count it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the quarter notes, you would count 1, 2, 3, 4. The half notes, you would count 1, 2, 3, 4. The whole note, you would count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what if you're in 3/4 time? Well, this whole note now is going to be worth 3 beats because there are 3 beats to the measure. So the whole note is no longer 4 beats, but it's 3 beats. Now, if I wrote the music in 2/4 time, then that whole note would be worth just 2 beats. That's sometimes done, but not commonly. Not that we would run into here. Now, the half note is going to be 2 beats, but if you want it to be 3, then you add a dot to it. The dot adds 1/2 the value of that note, so that it's 2 beats plus half of it. Half of it would be 1 beat, so therefore that's how you would get your 3 beats there. Now the quarter notes, you'd have to have 3 of them to have 3 beats, or you can take a half a note and a quarter note together to get the 3 beats. There are ways of subdividing them, but at any rate, it all has to total 3 beats. Like up here, everything has to total 4 beats. And then when you get to the 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you count it 1 and 2 and 3 and that gives you your 3 beats. These are the 8th notes. They can be written in different ways. So, whole note, 4 beats, half note, 2 beats, quarter notes, 1 beat, and 8th notes half of the quarter, and 3/4 times, whole note, 3 beats. For 3 beats, you could have a half note and a quarter note, combine them, or a dotted half note. It means the same thing. And then 3 beats, 3/4 notes, and then you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 1/8 notes. We're not going to go into the 16ths. So I think we are running out of time here. And so what I'm going to do is make a quick review of that and then get to a song after I show you a couple of instruments. So please join me next time. We'll close it here.